Today, we're asking a pretty huge question. What if we could just replace Social Security? We're going to break down a really radical proposal that would give every single citizen a multi-million-dollar retirement account from the day they're born. It's called the Universal Birth Endowment. But first, to really get why we need an idea this big, you have to understand the scale of the problem we're facing. I mean, America's Social Security system is heading for a crisis. And the numbers, well, they don't lie. $26 trillion. That is a staggering number. Think about it this way. If you add up every single retirement promise Social Security has made and then subtract all the money it's expected to collect, this is the shortfall. It's a promise that mathematically we just can't keep with the system we have today. And look, this isn't some problem for our grandkids to figure out. The day of reckoning is less than a decade away. By 2033, the system's main piggy bank, the trust fund, is projected to run totally dry. Now, that doesn't mean the checks stop cold, but it does mean that the money coming in from payroll taxes will only cover about 77 cents for every dollar that's been promised. And this really gets to the heart of the whole demographic issue. Back in 1960, you had more than 5 workers paying into the system for every single retiree. Simple math. Today, it's less than 3, and by 2050, it's projected to be just over 2. The very foundation of this pay-as-you-go system is shrinking right out from under us. So for years, we've all heard the standard fixes, right? Raise taxes, cut benefits, make people work longer. But these are all politically toxic. And even if you could get them passed, the research shows they're basically just patches on a fundamentally sinking ship. Just take one of the most common proposals, raising the retirement age. Even if you made a politically painful move and hiked it all the way to 69, that would only close about 40% of the long-term funding gap. A massive chunk of the problem would just be left sitting there. You see, these kinds of fixes, they don't solve the core structural flaw. Because of that demographic reality we just talked about, even if we made all these painful changes to balance the books for the next 75 years, guess what happens in year 76? This system goes broke all over again. We're just kicking a can that keeps rolling right back to us. So, this all leads to a completely different way of thinking. Instead of a system built on unfunded government promises, what if we built one based on actual, tangible property that every single citizen owns from the day they are born? Now, an idea this big didn't just appear out of thin air. It's really the result of over a decade of evolving thought. It started with ideas like baby bonds to fight the wealth gap. It was influenced by concepts like Bill Ackman's birthright, and it all eventually led to this idea, the Universal Birth Endowment, or UBE. So what exactly is a UBE? Well, it's pretty straightforward. It's a savings account funded by the government created for every single child born in the country. That money is then invested, usually in something like a broad stock market index fund, and it's just left to compound for decades. It's a complete flip from our pay-as-you-go system to a pre-funded system, where you own your retirement capital from day one. Okay, so what could this actually generate? This is where the magic of long-term compounding really comes into play. And frankly, the numbers are pretty astonishing. Of course, the big question is always, well, what happens if I'm just unlucky? What if I'm born right before a market crash? To figure that out, researchers ran simulations using all of America's historical stock market data, looking at every possible outcome, especially the worst ones. And here's the result. Get this, even if you were born at the worst possible time for the stock market, a scenario so unlucky it only happened 5% of the time in history, your account would still grow to over $640,000 in today's money. To put that in perspective, that alone is more than the total lifetime payout of today's average Social Security benefits. And what about for the typical person? The median outcome? An incredible $1.5 million. And that's real wealth, adjusted for inflation, created from a simple investment strategy that just starts on day one. This chart really visualizes that entire range of possibilities. The bottom bars there, they show the account value at age 40, and then the taller bars show the final retirement wealth at age 60. As you can see, from the worst-case scenarios on the left to the best on the right, it creates this massive floor of capital wealth for every single citizen, no exceptions. And the mechanics are beautifully simple. The government deposits about $200 a month for every child into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. The contributions stop when they turn 40, and then the account is just left alone to grow until retirement. It's a classic strategy called dollar cost averaging. You're investing a fixed amount regularly, which smooths out the market's ups and downs over a whole lifetime. Now for the biggest question of all, the one you're probably all thinking. Where does the money for this come from? Well, the The proposed answer is as forward-looking as the plan itself, and it has everything to do with the future of work. The core idea is to tax automation. And, this isn't some fringe concept. Prominent people, including Bill Gates, have been arguing for years that as machines and AI replace human labor, we need to tax that automated activity to help fund society's needs. This really represents a fundamental shift in our tax base. Instead of relying on taxes from human paychecks, a source that's going to shrink as automation grows, we would tax the economic output of the machines themselves. It's about taxing the capital that replaces labor, making sure society captures a share of those massive productivity gains. And what would all this cost? You'd think it would be astronomical, right? Well, the entire program is estimated to cost about 0.028% of the US GDP annually. That's a tiny, tiny fraction of the economy to pre-fund a system that could create millions of dollars in wealth for every citizen and maybe solve the retirement crisis for good. Ultimately, this whole proposal leaves us with a really fundamental question for our century. As machines create more and more of the wealth, who should that wealth belong to? The Universal Birth Endowment offers one possible answer, that by birthright, every citizen should own a piece of our automated future.